We meet in an hour of change and challenge, in a decade of hope and fear, in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
Welcome to another episode of the Energy Impact Podcast. Our guests today are Erika Gupta and Anthony Casciano from Siemens Financial Services. Erika, Anthony, glad to have you on.
Thanks for having us. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, before we get into some of the cool software tools you have and all the work that you've been doing over at Siemens, maybe tell us a little bit about yourselves. Erika, we'll start with you maybe. Where are you from originally?
I am from a small town in upstate New York. So I grew up with cows and horses and chickens. Think of it that way.
Fantastic. Which small town can you share?
It's called Lamontville. It's only on the old bus maps at this point, but it's sort of between New Paltz and Woodstock. So there's a lot of that sort of influence in the area and definitely a focus on sustainability.
Yeah. So did you know sustainability was something you wanted to do growing up with animals? Is that...
My best friend and I had a Save the Rainforest club when we were 7 years old, and we would do bake sales out of the local farm stand. So
fantastic.
Yeah, I think it was there from the start.
Okay, yeah, fantastic. Anthony, how about yourself?
Well, I wish I was part of that club. I wasn't. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and I've, with my jobs, traveled the world, but I've never lived more than 50 miles from that center. I've lived in Connecticut for 25 years, lived in northern Jersey, so always in that area, close enough to New York City to get there for work.
Okay, fantastic. And so what was your journey? You come through finance, come through broader energy?
Yeah, no, neither. When I graduated school, I was an economics major undergrad and an English lit minor. And the last thing I wanted was to wear a blue suit and a red tie for the rest of my life. And so look where I ended up. But
yeah, you were going to write essays to fight the man, I think.
Exactly. So, I really enjoyed strategy and developing markets. And when you look at sustainability, it's just one of those areas that creates opportunity both for society, but for also for companies' chance to be successful. Because without a strategy around sustainability, whether it's defensively to stay resilient or offensively to decarbonize, without that embedded in your business plan, I don't know long-term how you stay competitive.
Yeah, no, and we definitely want to dig into that, but let's come back to Erika saving the rainforest and then moving into enabling the future, Anthony, that you were describing.
You got it.
When I went to school, I studied engineering. I really loved problem solving, and I was very interested in finding ways to develop new technologies in order to address kind of our challenges around sustainability and climate. So I worked in the Boston area tech startup space for a while. I ended up focusing on controls engineering, so really looking at how do we manage systems. And I ended up moving to the US Department of Energy, where I was for about 10 years, running R&D programs in the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. And I really stayed deeply rooted in R&D and engineering for a long time. I joined Siemens first in the R&D side of the business and Siemens Corporate Technology, which is their internal think tank. And then Anthony found me and convinced me that I could have much more impact if I joined him and joined finance. And so far, I think he's right. So I'm very excited to be where I am.
You're not just saying that because he's listening
No.
in, are you?
No.
But back up a little bit. It sounded like you were kind of on the operator side and then working in government. Maybe how long were you on the front line, sort of in the mud, if you will, on building solutions?
About 5 years before I
Okay.
joined government.
And what
Um,
was the thinking? Yeah, so you kind of got your hands dirty. You're into getting in the controls, doing maybe hardware, right? There's hard tech is hard for a reason.
mhm.
And then what was the shift to government like? Was it a person that pulled you over, an opportunity? What was the
Do you
driver there?
want the really honest answer here?
Yes, yeah.
I met my husband on an airplane, and I needed to find a way to move to DC and stay in
That
clean and
is a
renewable
great
energy.
story. That is a
That is
great
the
story.
real,
Wow, that
true,
must have been
honest
a heck of
answer.
a plane ride. Well, a
Yes.
little longer than a puddle jump, I would imagine.
No, it was Boston to DC. It was a short
Wow.
one.
Okay. So love at first sight, and you said I got to move to DC, and
Yeah.
what's in DC but policy. How was that transition for you?
Oh, it was honestly a little hard initially going from the fast-paced world of the startup, moving then to government. But we have the saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? And I think that's really the mentality you have to adopt when you're in these really large organizations. If you want to have large and significant impact, sometimes you need to really take the time to get that stakeholder buy-in. And that's what I really found in government. To have enormous impact required a lot of effort on coordination and buy-in.
Interesting. Do you feel like that perspective evolved on what you think the right way is to have large impact, or was it sort of a necessity for you to act that way in government because it was already large and cumbersome?
In that case, I think it was a necessity
Yeah.
in a large organization. I think small and nimble also can have an immense amount of impact.
Yeah. And so, yeah, maybe Anthony has to do earmuffs here. Tell us about where Siemens fits in that spectrum and how you've brought value to that team because of those two disparate experiences.
I think the way Erika, as I'm listening to Erika talk about the business, I'm thinking about we're kind of both. Inside of our business, we operate like an incubator. We operate like a startup tech company because we need to move with the speed of the market. And the market is changing so fast when you look at the forces, digitalization, reshoring, upskilling of labor, and sustainability, all the different things that intersect with society, Siemens is involved in. And so we need to move fast. And we also need to recognize that we're a large global organization. And so I think we benefit from a benevolent parent who allows us to innovate, but we also need to make sure that what we bring to market carries the brand of Siemens in the right way. And so all the different tools, all the different solutions, products, we're proud to stand behind and have proven over time to matter and be successful for our customers. And I think we're looking at it, I really think we're looking at it right now, where you need capital that we bring, but you also need the technology. The two travel together, and then to be able to articulate the value proposition around it, why it matters, why it's important, I think are the things that we really focus on as a company that cuts across whatever discipline you're in, whether it's finance or, again, I'm in Detroit today with different parts of Siemens talking about the best way to communicate sustainability to process industries. We're spending it's a 2-day workshop on that, and that's really the cool part of what Siemens brings together.
Yeah, no, very cool. Yeah, before we get into the current work that you're doing in too much depth, maybe give folks the snapshot of Siemens Financial Services, Siemens Energy. I'm sure there's a whole host of other sort of legal entities here, but how do you fit in the broader ecosystem, just more tactically?
Yeah. So we are Siemens B2B, so business to business financial services provider. We have 5 different product capabilities inside the B2B world. So when you look at financing, what Siemens does, that's our commercial finance business. It's a small ticket flow business that finances what we do. We have a project finance business. So we're one of the biggest lenders, for instance, in the renewable space. Battery storage, solar, wind, infrastructure projects like desalination. We have a business focused on corporate lending, so primarily in the small, medium-sized companies that fit in the supply chain, right? And so one of the tools we built was a direct request from customers inside of our portfolio. We have an equity business that looks at earlier stage companies. So carbon capture, for instance, that are looking at innovation and decarbonization, through wind farms. So we think we have across the suite of products globally. So my responsibility is the Americas, from Canada through Latin America, but anchored in the U.S. It fits well inside of what Siemens does. So, and I think what you would say is it enables Siemens, again, because whatever we sell from a technology perspective, whatever we offer, it always travels with capital.
Yeah, money talks, as they say, right?
Yeah. Especially around innovation, right? We talk about the changes and the speed of change. We've already talked about that. You need to have a trusted partner in that change, because one wrong turn, can set you back, right? And so I think when you look at where Siemens positions itself, we like to consider ourselves a trusted partner of our customers.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Maybe Erika, talk about, I think you said that you were doing maybe technical prototyping when you first started. So now you came over with some of us finance nerds to the business side. How has that transition been? And do you feel like you have some advantages knowing the tech as deeply as you do?
I do. I do think that really helps, particularly when we're looking at new markets and new opportunities, to really understand what are the risks here, what are the challenges, and be able to bring that into that conversation.
Can you share an example, maybe one that was most technically interesting or the most exciting or the most proud of?
So maybe not on a very specific level, but example would be the direct air capture technologies, to being able to really look at and evaluate their performance in intended applications, and is this technology robust? Will it withstand, different climatic conditions or different exhaust streams? And really being able to look at that from a technical risk perspective and bring that into the conversation so that we can find sort of optimal solutions for direct air capture.
Yeah, very cool. Sounds like one that's sort of live time. So I won't ask you how it. I'll keep an eye out for the press release. I'll put it that way. Maybe walk us through the process a little bit. How do you get called in from other sort of Siemens sales entities when they're working with a customer? Or are you bringing opportunities? Are you bridging the gaps between clients and Siemens technical functions? And really a question for either of you, I guess. Help us get into what a sort of transaction life cycle looks like.
So maybe I'll start, Erika. I think you have to look at it strategically and tactically. Strategically, we're always looking at our 5-year plan. Where do we invest? Where do we want our portfolio to build to over that period of time, right? And so whether it's overt or not, we consider ourselves a sustainable lender of choice, the sustainable lender of choice. We want customers, whether it's in the development or production of energy or the consumption of energy, to view us as that trusted partner, as I said before. So we're looking at what are the sectors that need the support that are emergent, and what are those that also need to transition, right? And so we look at that in terms of the sectors. That's part of the exercise today. Where are they in the life cycle of sustainability, and how can we help them? Tactically, the tool that we built, the tool that we'll talk about, is to help companies baseline their carbon footprint. Why do they need to baseline their carbon footprint? Because they're in the supply chain and their customers are saying, I'm measuring your carbon, not just the quality and the price of the widget that you make for me. Well, where do I start? Right? So tactically, that's the tool that we built and the types of tools that we're building to help position companies to be successful, more than put them at risk of failure, right? So proactively, how do we do that? So that requires that combination. Erika always talks to me about, when she wants to simplify things, footprints and handprints. And footprints, we're sort of looking back. What is the carbon footprint of our portfolio, right? And handprints are kind of, where do we want to be? What do we want that to look like aspirationally? And so I think we have our hands and feet, at work at the same time. Erika, you may want to touch on that.
And no, just one of the things that we really talk about a lot is we need to be able to bring our financing and solutions together to address some of these really hard to abate industries, the industrial whole universe of companies out there that don't have really simple, easy solutions to decarbonization, but we as Siemens are decarbonizing our own operations. We have a lot of this experience. We're doing it ourselves and making incredible progress. So be able to bring that technology know-how and financing to that sector, I think can have a really large impact. And that's one of the things that we're focusing on from a handprint perspective. And there are companies that'll say, well, if you finance this steel manufacturer, now your footprint has grown. Yes, but we're providing them financing in order to reduce that footprint. That's our handprint. That's our impact. And that's what we really want to focus on.
Yeah, someone's footprint is someone else's handprint, right? To really stretch the analogy. Yeah, maybe touch a little bit, Erika, maybe in particular, but please, both of you comment. Siemens is a long history, right? And maybe what's it been like to sort of spearhead that climate initiative within such a large global organization that, from the outside appears to really stay on the forefront, but I'm sure behind doors, there's a lot of conversations and it takes a lot to sort of evolve a company like that.
Maybe I'll start and then hand it to you, Erika. I don't think we stare anything. I think if you look across the halls of Siemens, you will see so many different groups innovating, coming up with different ideas. We're just part of that ecosystem. And, one of the things I'm most proud about, Michael, is when we look at hiring people and we ask them, why are you considering us over company X, Y, or Z? It's because they want to work for a company that has purpose. And so when you start from that foundation, it's amazing how fast and how successful you can be in driving change. And so I think I'm really proud of our organization. A lot of the ideas that come from the grassroots that Erika then takes and molds like clay. But you see that all across Siemens.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Erika, anything to add?
I would just say that Siemens has been really committed to sustainability for long before I joined. I only joined Siemens 2.5 years ago. It seems like longer because I've just had so much opportunity to really develop. But the ecosystem that's already in place at Siemens has been crafted to support this transition, and it's been crafted that way for many years. I don't find it to be an area of resistance. Yes, we have lots of conversations and we talk about how can we have more impact? How can we do more? Where can we help our customers go further? But it's probably not what you might imagine.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. Well, maybe a perfect segue. Tell us about this more recent tool that you're I think it's available now or to be available maybe by the time the episode airs. So tell us what it is. How did you come up with it and how are you using it?
This was Anthony's brainchild, so I'll let him introduce this.
Well, it's fully developed, and it's in with friends and family, and we'll roll it out in a couple of weeks at Climate Week, where Erika will be there. We'll host a panel, and really, it started. She can explain the technical aspects, but I'll tell you the why. The why was we start to get questions from our customers, those that we lend to, who would say, I got an RFP from company X. And in that RFP, they asked me to measure my carbon footprint. So I mentioned that before. It's not just the widget or the price of the widget. Now it's your emissions, because companies started to measure scope 3, right? Supply chain emissions. And supply chain emissions, are 11x times greater than operational emissions. So it's far dirtier and needs the most work. A lot of the supply chain are small, medium companies and don't have Erikas on their team. They don't have heads of sustainability. So how can we help them? First, the baseline, and then to bring solutions to bear. So it started with that, and we hired when Erika said she was at Siemens Technologies. That's our internal think tank, right? They make the digital twins and everything else, and so we started out on a path to say, how can we help them measure? And by the way, this tool is expandable. We're looking at different ways to do it, not just carbon footprint, but resiliency. What are the different things you need to do to make sure your business can stay competitive and operational in the future? So maybe Erika, talk about sort of the technology.
Sure. So Anthony brought me this request right after I joined Siemens of, can you make a tool where you give the customer their carbon footprint with just their address? And I was like, well, I can't do it with just the address, but if we get a little bit more information, we can make this work. So what we really need is the address, the type of building. So is it a hospital? Is it a food and beverage manufacturing plant, right? And the size. That's the minimum information that we need. And the way it's being done is really by using a lot of these incredibly rich data sets that have been created by the US government. So there is data from the National Renewable Energy Lab called the Comstock database, where they have 10 terabytes, over 10 terabytes of load profiles of buildings from every state and climate zone in the country, organized by type. So that's what we're using for our commercial building load profiles.
And did you know that? Was that something that you're like, oh, hey, I've seen this?
Yeah, so that's actually one of my frustrations. I guess I'm allowed to say that now that I'm no longer in government.
Yeah.
But all of these amazing data sets and tools were created, but they weren't made usable. So what we've done is collect all these trusted data sources from EPA, from the Department of Energy, from Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, from Argonne National Lab, from NREL, the National Renewable Energy Lab, and brought them together in this tool and created an interface and a capability layered on top that brings them together and allows someone to interact with them in a way that's intuitive.
Wow.
Rather than trying to go and gather all these little pieces of data for themselves. So the tool will give an estimate of their carbon footprint based on existing data sets, right, that are available. And then the estimation for the carbon footprint is from EPA, and the electricity is from the eGrid database. If you're familiar with that, that'll give you regionally specific carbon intensity of the grid. You can add in if you're already buying RECs or if you have PV on site, and we'll adjust for that. And it also gives you your estimated cost based on the state average electricity price. But you can also choose an electricity rate from the utility rate database, another thing that's provided by Department of Energy that most people probably don't know exists. But you can go in and look at the utility rates that are available to you from your utility in this database and pull your load profile, put it through that rate structure, and see your actual costs, including your peaks, your demand charges, all of that. But then we wanted to take it one step further and not just say, okay, here's your carbon footprint. Rather say, okay, here's your carbon footprint. Now here's what we can do to reduce it while also giving you a positive payback. So there's another tool that we built off of called REOP, that the National Renewable Energy Lab developed. And we didn't take it directly, but we did build off of that base code to really create an optimization that looks at the different technologies that you could adopt. Solar, battery storage, thermal storage, and says, okay, what would be the impact on your cost and your carbon footprint if you adopt these technologies? And then it's sizing them based on your location and your load profile to maximize your return on investment. And that's really taking into account, your site-specific irradiance on the solar production, all of that. And that's really allowed us to also give them this view of, here's how you maximize the payback on this decarbonization. This is a financial benefit. It's not just reducing your carbon footprint, it's reducing your energy bill too.
Yeah, amazing. That sounds like a very involved, it's like 8 people spending 9 months of work to do manually, right? Sounds like a very involved tool.
Yeah.
Well, and I think part of it, Michael, was some of our customers would say, they'd have consultants come in, and the consultants would offer lots of ideas, and it would be expensive, right? And so, 2 of the objectives that Erika had up front was make sure we use trusted sources. So we didn't want to get into the debate whether it's Siemens stuff or not. So it needed to be trusted. And 2, we wanted it to be ubiquitous. We wanted it to be available for everyone, because we didn't want to be the ones who determine winners and losers, right? So we want to give everyone the same starting point. You need more granularity than what this tool offers. This tool doesn't take from A to Z. It takes you from A to F or A to M, right? So you still need work in between, because you need to get specific. Where inside the factory floor should I focus on the most? But it gives you a running start, and it gives everyone an equal chance to participate.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so is it focused mostly on sort of in the fence line emissions, and someone else would then have to use it for their, right? Like,
yes,
someone's scope 3 is someone else's scope 1, and on and on and on, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's within the fence line.
Currently, it is focusing on the site operational carbon footprint, scope 1 and 2. It does not include scope 3. We are currently in development, as Anthony described. We're continuing to add capabilities and features. So this will not be out in time for Climate Week, but the added features that we're working on right now is a fleet analysis. So you can put in your current vehicle fleets types and look at the cost and carbon impact of converting to electric for those fleets. And we're also working on that resilience tool to also say, okay, based on the location you already gave us, here are the top climate risks for your location and the adaptation measures you can consider taking to improve your resilience to the increasingly common weather events that we've been experiencing.
Yeah, fascinating. What can you share? Maybe it's too soon. Can you share an example of something that has come from the tool that shoot, if I just add some PV to my roof here, if I do this, was there do you have a eureka moment you can share yet?
I mean, I would say in pilot, one of the really cool examples is we had an intermodal company that was getting pressure from inside its customer base. And so we used the tool as a demo. We were still developing it. And off of that, they made some investment ultimately in software to help optimize the operation. So that was before we even rolled it out, just in pilot. And I think the other thing is the tool doesn't really discriminate. It doesn't know if it's a small company or a big company. We target towards small and medium, but the other sort of aha was larger companies, even though they have a sustainability group, want to deploy the tool because they have manufacturing facilities all over the United States. And so they're the same way Siemens is decarbonizing its footprint, so are they. And this just gives them that running start. So I think, where we thought it would be more focused on smaller companies because that's where we're targeting, again, other people and other companies want to leverage this capability. And we've had some really nice conversations with the government side. Green banks right? That want to bring tools to bear for companies. Again, whether it's a residential building, which we don't finance, again, it doesn't discriminate. It'll help you there and target where they should focus investments. So I think there's this blossoming ecosystem, and I know that's a bit of an overused word, but the more we talk, the more there's tentacles into the tool that really creates and pushes the dialogue along.
Yeah, yeah. What features are you most excited to add? I think you mentioned sort of the fleet feature. What else is on the list that you're like, oh, this is really cool. I'm excited when this finally hits. Go ahead,
I'm
Eric.
really excited about the adaptation and resilience piece that we're adding in. I think that's something that's going to be really powerful and really helpful, particularly into the future. But I'm also just really excited about the current launch and see what feedback and what users ask us for. Because that's another thing that we want to be really responsive to, is listening to what our customers are asking for and making sure that we're prioritizing those features that'll help them the most.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And a sign of a good business when you're customer first.
So, Michael, one cool thing that Erika mentioned with the adaptability tool that we've developed as an extension of the decarb tool, we did that as part of a Siemens initiative called Tech for Sustainability, where we open it up, or they open up ideas to academia all around the world. And we probably had, I don't know, 50 different applicants, 50 different universities, Erika, apply to develop this tool. And so this tool is an extension, the adaptability tool is an extension of the work that was done with a university in Germany to help measure or to help a company measure its ability to basically withstand weather events, right? So windows, roofs, all those types of things that in weather events cause a company to shut down. So to lose productivity. So, that's, again, when you talk about that ecosystem, there's academia in the middle of it. We've got government, we've got other corporates, we've got, kind of all hands on deck around this innovation.
Yeah, very cool. And I should have asked earlier, is this going to be sort of publicly available, be behind a sign up wall? What's the rollout going to look like?
So anyone can sign up from the website. It'll be dbo.siemens.com. So Decarbonization Business Optimizer, DBO. Those are the letters you're looking for.
Was it
.siemens.com.
Delta Bravo? What's the O? I don't something octopus. I don't know what the O is, but yeah,
Yeah.
dbo.siemens.com. Okay, great. And you sign up. Like I could put my house in and see what it says.
You could. I don't have a residential load profile for a standalone single family, but you could maybe model it as a small
A
hospital.
warehouse.
I'll put my office in. Yeah, I'll see what it would be like. What if I was generating,
hotel.
1,000 shirts, 1,000 shirts a year from this address would be what?
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. Okay, well, so yeah, it sounds like you spent a lot of time perfecting this, kind of rolling it out. You're right on the doorstep of having it go live. There'll be stuff to add and tweak. But what's next? What's that 5-year plan look like for the team, and what should we be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I think we'll continue to introduce tools, but it's not just tools. So it becomes, how do you connect, these curated tools, information with the technology, and then the capital. So to have this turnkey solution that says, whatever your need, we have a solution for, and we're going to do it through partners because we don't have a solution for everything. Here's the thing: if you think about 5 years ago when we talked about sustainability, half the battle was whether people took it seriously, whether there was a business case for it or not. Today, the conversation is very different. Right now, the conversation becomes, I kind of get it. If you don't get the decarbonization, you certainly get the resiliency, because there's no part of the United States where there's not some sort of weather-driven event that's impacting business. So now you're changing the narrative to not why do I need to do it, but how do I do it? And I think the next 5 years are mobilizing around opportunity, are getting it to scale. We used to talk about green premium in a negative. Green premium, the cost of green technologies greater than the cost of traditional technologies. And how do you overcome the green premium? I think the green premium is something different. I think green premium is actually opportunity. Because if your company is able to withstand weather events, if your company is decarbonized and more efficient, right? Because green is not just sustainable, it's also efficiency. It's lots of different things that go into it. Boy, are you positioned well for the future. So I think it's mobilizing resource. And I really want to get that ecosystem. Our CEO in the US, Barbara Humpton, calls it the ecosystem of capital. I really want to see if we can bring the green banks together with private capital, with different sources of capital to get scale there. I really want to see how we build our technology in partnership with other technology to get the right solution to the right company, right person at the right time. So now I think it's mobilizing forces.
Erika, anything to add to that?
No, I think Anthony captured that perfectly.
You got your full, and it's a great idea. Maybe what do you think the biggest barriers are to that? I mean, like it's a lot of people doing a lot of things at the right time, right? And so, I don't think anyone's going to say no. That's not what we want to do. But I think doing it's a totally different story.
Well, I hate to draw an analogy to dating since I've been married for almost 30 years, but
that's okay. I think we're all here because Erika sat next to someone that she thought was cute on an airplane.
All roads lead through that date. I think it's taking the inefficiency out of the process. That's the hard part. How do you match the right pools of capital? Everyone says the government, right? As Erika talks about, there's lots of different capital that's made, that's helped be a catalyst. The IRA with tax incentives and other things. But how do you find the right technology? How do you find the right pool of capital is never as easy as it should be. And we have to find a way to simplify that. That to me, if we can solve that I think is what triggers that explosion. So
yeah, what are the ideas? Can you, if you're willing to share at least? This is like my real sweet spot too. So
well, but before we did this tool, we were playing with, and I think we were too soon. We were trying to develop an online marketplace. And again, I view it to be capital agnostic. But if you're a developer and you're building a wind farm, or you're doing a community solar project, or you're doing a resi building in a low income area, they all attract different capital, right? But no one knows where to go. So we tried to build a marketplace around that, an online marketplace.
And it's between project and capital markets marketplace,
and corporate and capital markets. But it's the matching, and then you need to add, okay, the what is it that I actually need? Because if you think about it, Erika, what's the statistic you tell me? 40% of the Siemens can answer to 40% of the building envelope. That means there's 60% of other technology that's needed to help truly decarbonize. Who are the who, right? And so we need to make it easier. We need to make that process easier. So to me, it's how do you build this marketplace? Siemens is doing it through what we call the accelerator. And so we're at I would call the infancy, although it's been in development, investment for a while now. It's this accelerator, and we're going to bring from a Siemens perspective. And the question is, how big can you make that? And how simple can you make it so that anyone who goes in understands how to navigate it? But that's how I think Siemens is doing it. And I think that's a really the opportunity that sits there for whoever captures the moment. We're trying to capture that moment.
Yeah, fascinating. And you called it an accelerator. That has sort of a venture, seed sound to me. Is that, okay. So that's like early stage tech. You're saying, wind, solar, that's relatively mature.
No, I think it's Siemens' homage to, you have to think as this 200-year-old company like an accelerator.
I see.
It is called the accelerator. I think it's just that homage to, we need to be faster, more nimble because the market's moving that fast.
Accelerating,
right?
not
accelerating. That's right. So,
services.
And more flexible and more open in our ecosystem and our approach. So we've been doing a lot of work to that regard as well to really make sure that the different digital tools that we develop are easily integrated with and open with any other tech that you want to bring in and connect in, especially like in our Building X is a good example of that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I find I find my observation of the capital market space is that the software venture and growth equity market like makes a lot of sense and seems very scalable and is like understood, but is also maybe the smallest amount of impact, right? I mean, at the end of the day, climate, whether it's adaptation or prevention, is a very physical, hard tech business, right? It's changing the building envelope. It's installing, generation equipment. It's building pylons and transmission lines. And so sometimes I'm afraid that we're all solving the margin with software and ignoring the main driver, which is the actual stuff.
I'm gonna make one small argument to that, which
Yeah,
is
please.
often you can achieve almost a 30% energy efficiency improvement just by improving your building control systems and your efficiency controls. There's DOE reports on this. So really, that controls and management, seeing as buildings account for about 40% of primary energy use globally, if you can cut 30% of that 40%, you've already made a pretty big impact. So let's not leave the low-hanging fruit.
That's coming from a controls engineer, so we know it's right. Yeah.
So I think there's room for both, right? You need those moonshots, but at the same time, it's everyday block and tackling that's going to carry the day. Again, I think when we're talking to companies, we were asked to speak to a large Fortune 500, 2/3, I forget the exact number, 63, 64, 65% of large cap companies, the Fortune 1000, have a sustainability statement. Many of them have a sustainability target. Conversely, the SME space, a third have made any advancements towards sustainability. So if you think the SME space is the core of your supply chain and the supply chain is 11 times greater than your operational efficiency, the math just doesn't work unless everyone rows in the same direction, unless everyone, strives for the same goal. And so I think how you help them monetize it, how you help them see something that's good for society, good for business, is really that opportunity that we, that we take as a challenge.
Yeah. What, I guess it's the best way to ask this question. You have a very cool perspective on the whole thing as financiers, but with like deep insight into technical supply chains, right? So like what you mentioned, Erika, direct air capture, like what other technologies, like what's the lean right now on direct air capture? Like that's going to be a real game changer, or, jury's still out. And like what other technologies are you really excited about?
They're also really excited. So this is probably a little bit colored by my personal perspective, which is I spent many years in hydrogen and working in the hydrogen office. But when we look at these really hard to decarbonize industrial sectors, looking at the opportunity that we can bring forward by using green hydrogen, I think that's another area that's really interesting for us. And, a lot of what we're looking at too is fuel cells and what are the other power generation systems that can be more of a dispatch on demand versus at the whim of the planet. So, Anthony.
No, I think you've answered it.
Yeah. Hey, does Siemens have fuel cells, or that's one where you match up with some of the larger, I know there's a few companies that are like very established fuel cell players.
We provide a lot of kind of supply chain related parts. We no longer have fuel cells ourselves. They went with Siemens Energy.
Got it. Oh, okay. Yes. The split. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, maybe keeping an eye on time here. What are anything that I didn't ask that I should have?
I have to say we're pretty comprehensive. Yeah, I don't know. I think I think you've asked the exact right question. Where do we go from here? And I think, the momentum is with us, and it's really for us to grab that opportunity, not us being Siemens, but the collective us, right? There's a role for everyone to play. Understanding that role and making it work is both the opportunity and the challenge. And I think you've kind of captured that. I don't think this is one of those that's going to go with the political whims of the time, right? I think this is one that people get, that this is a business-driven momentum, right? And I think you needed that tailwind to get that going.
Erika, anything to add? I wouldn't say I captured it. You guys captured it. I just baited you.
Yeah, you did.
I'm happy to let Anthony have that summary point there. That's
fantastic. Any last thoughts that you would want, outside? I guess it was really kind of a good note to end on. So maybe Erika, you could repurpose it, or what would be the one takeaway you would hope that our audience sort of takes away from this conversation?
Ooh. Can I have two?
You can have two. I'll allow it.
I have two. So one is really, we're here to support that. We're developing this tool. We want, everyone to be able to use it. It does only work in the US right now because of these amazing rich data sets. And I'd love to see data similarly developed for other regions so that we can make these offerings more broadly available. I think that could really have a lot of impact, just in terms of being able to have the reach. And then two is really to Anthony's point of it being an ecosystem and a partnership, and to say we are very open to partnering. This is a big, large challenge. None of us can do it alone, and we're open.
Fantastic. What a way to end it on. Anthony, Erika, thanks so much for your time.
Michael, thank you.
Our leadership in science and industry, our hopes for peace and security, our obligations to ourselves as well as others, all require us to make this effort, to solve these mysteries, to solve them for the good of all men and for the progress of all people.